I was working with a drug abuse clinic
Okay.
as a counselor, and I'd realized I was a hypocrite
Oh, why so?
because I was doing drugs.
You were a drug counselor doing drugs?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was starting to feel guilty about it. And I went to a woman who's on the general board of the drug clinic. She tried to talk to me about her faith. Now, I'd made it really clear I didn't want to hear from her about her faith in Christ. I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
I'd put myself in a pit, though. I was guilty. I was feeling uncomfortable about myself being a counselor in a drug clinic, trying to help kids in the community. I got nothing. I had no answers for them. And I felt bad for them, and I felt guilty for myself. And she said, well, he made a promise. He said, ask you'll receive, seek you'll find, knock and the door will be open to you. I sat there and I said, that sounds good, that sounds real.
Why? I mean, for you, was Jesus forbidden? Was it taboo? Like, what was your association?
Everything I knew about Jesus had nothing to do with Jewishness, with the Jewish people. I left that meeting in her home, got on my motorcycle, and I drove up into the mountains nearby. I went out into a valley, which was for me like my synagogue, nighttime. Flashlight, sat down, looked at the stars, and I said, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I said, I'm asking, seeking, and knocking. How am I doing? And who are you? And then I sat there and I waited. And then I figured, if God really made that promise, he'd show up in his time. And he did.
So what happened after you asked God basically to reveal himself to you? And you kind of thought, well, I guess either he will or he won't. And then what happened?
Well, I was waiting to hear about who he is, because that had been the question since my childhood. I just wanted to know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There was one point where the guy that I'd grown up with, his mother became a Christian. She'd sent me a book by a guy named Hal Lindsey. The book was called The Late Great Planet Earth. It was like biblical prophecy. He illustrates something that Jesus said, where he talks about the Torah. And Jesus said, it's written in your law that you shall not commit murder, but I'd say to you, if you called somebody an idiot or a fool, basically you've taken away their dignity and their humanity. If God is judging me at that level, the intent of my heart, that nobody else knows but he does, then I'm dead. I'm in trouble. And I realized, I'm afraid that this might be true.
Oh.
And if it was true, it was as bad as any other outcome I could think of. All I could think of is, if this is true, I'm alienated from my people. My family will think that I've gone crazy. I went back to the campus.
Okay.
This was toward the end of the winter semester, and they had a program, a Christian program. They had a program called the Feast of Lights, and I listened to the program. The music was wonderful. They were lighting candles, and as they were lighting them, they read from John 14, verse 6. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. I was totally freaked. I knew that it was true. I knew that God, in his love, paid the price for me and my brokenness. And it was his love that made all the difference. It wasn't so much I wasn't thinking about being saved or salvation. I was thinking about reconciliation and having been brought back together with him by something he did for me.
Something that really struck me that you said was that you felt like a hypocrite. It was almost like that was your identity, was hypocrite. But in the relationship with God, there was honesty and vulnerability, and that broke that lie of like, you're a hypocrite,
right.
Because between you and him, he knew
right.
who you really were. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't a hypocrite to him anymore.
I think it's often hard for us to remember that that is our true identity. It's who we are in relation to God, not who we think that we are in our lowest moments or highest moments. It's not who other people say that we are. It's who we are as God's creation. That is the truest thing about us. And I like how you said you were connected, because in a sense, that's the opposite of a hypocrite, right? Hypocrite is like, there's two sides of yourself and they're not connected. And then when you came to know God, it was like, it became you and him connected and whole.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And it's growing in the knowledge just how big his love really is. Truth and justice can be very, very painful without knowing grace and love at the same moment. Growing into that relational transformation, I mean, I'm a lot happier with who I am, but the important thing isn't how I measure up in society. It's how I grow in my relationship with him. I've said publicly that I can understand why it's so hard for people to admit and recognize our brokenness until we know the love of God. Coming to know the love of God, there's an act of trust involved. It's one thing to say God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. It's another thing to know that what he did to demonstrate that love on the cross, coming to live among us.
It's truly fascinating to hear your story and see how God transformed your life to give you a special purpose to be a therapist for mixed couples, Jewish and Christian.
I see a connection because in your faith journey, it was going from this separated identity to this wholeness. And that's sort of what you do now is you work with couples and families where one partner's Jewish, one partner's not, and they're struggling to be fully connected and unified in their spiritual journey. So do you see, is there a connection sort of between your own faith and what you do now?
Oh yeah. The hardest conversation to have is, we start with our cross-cultural differences. What do you eat? We don't eat that. What do you do for that holiday? Oh, we don't do that. Those are very surface conversations. When we talk about and get real about our brokenness and to say to one another, I think my culture is the best culture and our way of doing things is the best way, but when it gets down to it, we're both just as broken.
I believe there's somebody watching this right now who needs to hear that. And I want you to tell them from your heart that there's hope and also how they could reach out to you if they want to hear more. Because we have a whole ministry in Jews for Jesus that you founded, and now you've trained a lot of other people in counseling couples and families to be able to have this flourishing life where it's not like we have to pick Jewish or Christian or this culture or that culture, where it can all come together in this really beautiful way, and everything and everyone is honored. So where could somebody get support from you or from your team if that's something that they are looking for?
Boy, the first thing is that there's hope. It's not impossible. But all the challenges that they're facing, the first important step is to acknowledge that those are real challenges, that if they're just getting to know one another, they want to get those resolved. They want to get answers to them before they get married, because they only get amplified or intensified after they get married. And the marriages are at risk. They don't have their game plan on how they're going to resolve those. If they're in a marriage now and they're struggling with those challenges, it's easy enough to understand the differences in our cultures. And once we can get past that, we can start talking about those words that keep coming up that start a fight. One partner says, "I wish you were saved," and the other one goes, "I'm fine." Why do we have to talk about me? What about you? So there's hope to get to those spiritual conversations about those issues that sound foreign to one partner and the other partner doesn't know how to communicate them. Jewish partner, you may not know it, but the intermarriage rate among Jews and Gentiles in North America today is close to 70%. So your situation isn't an anomaly, it's not a puzzle, it's a reality. And your situation is not hopeless. There are people who understand the questions that you have and the challenges that you feel and the cultural discomfort that goes on with wanting to pursue somebody who's wonderful but believes something that may be awkward for you. If you're a Gentile and you're a Christian or not a Christian, there's hope that you can understand what's happening with your partner. And there's a way to discover those cross-cultural differences, work them through, and then find the language that you've been wanting and needing to communicate with one another. And that's what we do. We look at both partners, a Jewish and Gentile partner. We say both of you have a valid story to tell. Contact us if you want. First of all, check out our website at www.jewishgentilecouples.com, jewishgentilecouples.com. Look at the resources that are on there. Look at the podcasts that are on there, the people telling their stories. You'll find some that might echo right where you're at. And then there's a contact page where you can just reach out to us and say, "Hey, I've got some questions." No commitment, there's no charge. just reach out. We'll be glad to talk with you, make ourselves available. Maybe we can help you find spiritual harmony together. That's the aim. A mutually acceptable spiritual harmony that works for both of you.
So maybe tell me a couple of the most interesting, of course, no, don't use any names, but a couple of the most interesting conversations that you've seen between a Jewish and Gentile couple.
Couple I'm working with right now, she's a fairly new Christian from a Hispanic background. She's got a Jewish boyfriend, great guy. They have worked in the same field, professional people, very, very bright people. She's trying to understand his faith. So she has been going through a Judaism 101 course through her synagogue. And I find that Gentiles who are Christians oftentimes are more interested in Judaism and the Jewish background of the Bible and the Jewishness of their faith than Jewish partners are to know more about Jesus and the New Testament and their faith and the roots in the Hebrew Bible. So as I'm talking with him, I'm asking, my approach is, okay, both you, we're going to listen to both of you as equals. You're both created by God in the image of God. How do you arrive at a relationship of spiritual harmony? But I ask him, so what are you willing to do, like her, to find what her faith is all about and understand her spiritual journey? And he's very limited in what he's willing to do, and he doesn't see it yet. That's what we're working on. Somebody suggested he goes to an Alpha course, at a church where they just have kind of open conversations about what spirituality and beliefs are. We'll see whether he's willing to go do that. It's a struggle. It's his struggle right now, and he's very involved in his synagogue.
It's really beautiful to me, not only their story, but how you've tracked in relationship with so many people over so many years and seen how God is writing these long stories in people's lives. Tuvya, thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your expertise in your work. I hope people will reach out to you or refer you to people they know who would really benefit from the ministry that you have to offer. If you enjoyed Tuvya's story, please like this video, subscribe to So Be It, share the word so that we can keep reaching more people with stories of Jewish faith in Jesus. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thanks, Arielle.